The day my first love got engaged to someone else, I ended up in a plane crash. The one who came to retrieve my body was Oliver, a guy I used to hate and curse. He gave up everything to take his own life and join me in the afterlife. Wanting a fresh start, I showed up at Oliver's place during a heavy downpour. Seeing the shock in his eyes, I grabbed his sleeve. Oliver, will you marry me? The guy suddenly turned red, but casually brushed my hand away. Are you messing with me or something? That night, I stood shivering in the rain. Furious, Oliver opened the door and sighed, pulling me into his arms. Mia, I'm nothing but a damn dog you've raised. When I woke up again, I was greeted by a chilly morning. I got up and shut the window. It had just turned autumn, and I was back to the time before my childhood friend Ethan got engaged. My phone kept ringing with messages from Ethan. Mia, I'm having dinner with Lily tonight. Why don't you come over? I saw another message. I know it's awkward, but I've decided to marry her. Let's meet up tonight for dinner. I don't want the two most important people in my life to drift apart. Looking at Ethan's messages popping up on my phone, I rolled my eyes. In my past life, I was all in for Ethan. He promised we'd marry after graduation, and I never doubted he'd keep his word. Our childhood bond was solid. I knew he'd propose someday. But then, Lily entered Ethan's life. She loved to tease him, always making him blush. She'd kiss his cheek when he was upset and say, "You're so adorable." I watched helplessly as Ethan fell for her. He told me that after meeting Lily, he finally felt what love was. She was his light, his salvation, and he swore he wouldn't marry anyone else in this life besides her. He broke all his promises to me, brutally making me face reality. On the day Ethan got engaged to Lily in my previous life, I was on a business trip in Los Angeles. Hearing the news crushed me. I canceled everything and bought a ticket back home immediately. Maybe it was fate that I couldn't stop their union. That day, the plane I was on crashed. As the cabin was nosediving, regret filled my heart. I shouldn't have died like that, especially not for a guy who didn't care about me. After my death, my spirit wandered around the crash site. The media reported the accident right away. The only person who came to collect my body was Oliver, the guy I once despised. With bloodshot eyes, he rushed to the scene, digging his hands into the ground until they bled, but never stopping. Oliver kept calling my name, his grief overwhelming him to the point of passing out. Later, he took his own life by overdosing in his villa. When he was found, it was too late for any rescue. In the letter he left in his study, there was just one sentence. Mia, don't be scared. I'm here to stay with you. Maybe Oliver's obsession was too intense, so I was brought back to life. Feeling the fresh air, it was like returning from a long absence. This time, I decided to cherish Oliver, the guy who was willing to give up his life for me. He loved me so much, and it was me who had been blind and let him down in my past life. Thinking about this, I opened the chat on my phone. I sent Ethan a brief message. I have no issues with who you marry, but let's cut off contact from now on. After sending it, I turned off my phone decisively. The sky outside was already dark, and Oliver should have finished work by now. While changing clothes to head out, the TV was showing weather updates. Starting at 6:30 p.m. tonight, there's heavy rain expected in the city. Citizens are advised to carry umbrellas. I didn't pay much attention and turned off the TV casually. Stepping out of the taxi, there was a light drizzle. Relying on memory, I searched for Oliver's address in the villa area. In my past life, he only mentioned it once. When I arrived at his door, I nervously swallowed hard. I raised my hand and pressed the doorbell. Even though I knew about Ethan and Lily's engagement from before, my heart raced more than ever. After years apart, I was searching for Oliver again. The doorbell rang a few times before I heard footsteps inside. Opening the door, Oliver and I faced each other. He was in a gray casual outfit, and his tousled dark hair gave him a gentle look. Seeing me there, his eyes widened. Mia? Under his gaze, I slowly blushed. The rain was pouring heavily, soaking the steps beneath my feet. Taking a deep breath, I grabbed his sleeve again. Oliver, will you marry me? The air suddenly went quiet. Oliver's eyes turned red as he stared at me, trying to read something from my face. After a moment, he chuckled softly. Mia, are you joking? He turned to leave, but I held on to him again. Feeling his indifferent stare made me uneasy. Being ignored like this felt awful. In the past, I treated him the same way. calling him a nuisance, even crying hysterically in front of him, begging him to leave my life. He must have felt terrible too, while I was heartbroken over Ethan, fixated on someone else. I felt terrible. With these thoughts, my determination strengthened. Oliver, I know you don't believe me now, but I'm serious about marrying you. I want to be with you. Oliver's eyes darkened, and he looked away. As the door closed, I heard his cold voice. It's raining. Go back inside early. And just like that, Oliver shut me out. The heavy rain beat down on me relentlessly. I struggled to move inside, half of me drenched. The early autumn chill made me shiver, and I stood still, not taking a single step. With the door closed, Oliver forced himself back to his study to continue working. He had been grinding for the past 2 days without rest. The project was in its final phase, and he needed to stay focused. But the woman outside was making him restless, unable to concentrate. She showed up out of nowhere today, even bringing up marriage, which really caught him off guard. In the past, such words never came from Mia. Oliver once thought he was lovesick, imagining things. But seeing my determined look, he couldn't help but be moved. He tried to steel himself, forcing himself not to care about her. 10 minutes passed, and the monitor on his computer showed I still hadn't left. Clearly shivering from the cold, I stubbornly waited for him to come out. I was incredibly persistent. Oliver shook his head helplessly, finally softening. He went to the bathroom to grab a clean large towel and walked quickly to the entrance. There, I stood at the door, shivering uncontrollably. And just when I thought Oliver wouldn't acknowledge me again, the door opened. A clean towel quickly blocked my view. Then, I felt myself being pulled into a warm embrace. Oliver's rough voice whispered in my ear, "Mia, I'm nothing but a damn dog you've raised." Even though I decided to stop liking him, I couldn't control my heart. My heart raced, and I opened my mouth to say something. The next moment, he lifted me up, keeping the rain outside the door. Oliver placed me on the bathroom sink, his gaze cold. "Take a shower first." With that, he went to the bedroom and brought out a set of men's pajamas for me. "This is new, never worn before. Wash up and come out quickly." Watching him bustle around, I obediently nodded. Oliver closed the bathroom door. I looked around the bathroom. Clearly, no woman had been here before. This realization made me strangely excited. After drying my hair and stepping out, Oliver was sitting in the study, looking through documents. Seeing me come out, he waved me over. "Drink this." He handed me a cup of cold medicine he had prepared. The cup was still warm, and I drank it all in one go. Oliver always had endless patience with me. Why hadn't I seen his kindness before? This was the first time I saw Oliver so serious. He seemed like a different person from the one I remembered. I hesitated for a moment, thinking maybe I shouldn't bother him. As I lifted my foot to walk into the living room, Oliver called me back. "Was what you just said serious?" I turned around to see Oliver looking at me too. His dark eyes showed no emotion. "It was serious, this," I replied. And as the words left my mouth, his eyelashes trembled slightly. Sensing his hesitation, my heart ached. The next moment, I walked over to Oliver. I took his hand in his bewildered gaze and said, "Every word I said today was serious. Oliver, I want to marry you. Can I?" It was my first time proposing to a man, and I felt a strange nervousness. Even the way I looked at Oliver was cautious. His deep eyes lingered on me, as if he feared this was all a dream. "Mia, prove it to me. Show that you're willing to marry me." "How do you want me to prove it?" I didn't say a word, just silently looked at Oliver. Desire and a hint of fear flowed in his eyes. Panicking, afraid this was just a whim, he said, "Kiss me." Without thinking, I leaned in and kissed his lips. Just as I had expected, Oliver's lips were soft and pleasant. Sensing my initiative, he seemed almost disbelieving. As I moved forward, he hesitantly took a step back. For every step he took back, I confidently pursued. Feeling my determination, Oliver sighed lightly and took control. He pulled me onto his lap, and a storm of kisses ensued. Late into the night, emotions ran high. Oliver carried me to the bedroom. His rough voice sounded especially sexy in the deep of the night. "Mia, you can still back out now if you want." I didn't say a word, only gently unbuttoned his shirt. Through my actions, I showed Oliver that I had no regrets. His eyes showed strong possessiveness. Mia, I'll definitely stay by your side. Blushing, I buried myself in his arms. After a bit of turmoil, I finally fell into a deep sleep. The next morning, Oliver was already gone. I walked into the living room and saw a prepared breakfast on the table with a pink sticky note attached. Mia, remember to eat your breakfast. I have an important meeting this morning. I'll be busy, but we'll come back to pick you up, and we'll go get our marriage license. Seeing the words marriage license, I couldn't help but blush. Oliver was so efficient, he wasted no time and went straight to the point about getting married. Feeling joyful, I sat down and ate the fried eggs he made for me. Just thinking about him made me smile softly. Since it was still early, I hailed a car directly back home. I had bought this house a few years ago. Though not large, it was a place I called home in the city. As I came downstairs with my documents, Oliver was waiting for me in the car. Later, I'll call the moving company to shift all your stuff to my place. He skillfully fastened my seatbelt, his tone leaving no room for doubt. Seeing me nod without objection, Oliver chuckled softly. Suddenly leaning in, his deep eyes fixed on me. Ready to be my wife? My heart skipped a beat. How did I not notice before that Oliver enjoyed teasing people? I pursed my lips and without hesitation, kissed Oliver on the lips. His smile froze suddenly, a suspicious blush appearing on his fair face. Oliver cleared his throat a couple of times and returned to his seat. Beside him, my smile gradually widened. Oliver, this innocent type, was just too easy to play with. After completing a series of formalities, Oliver seemed like he had found peace. He held my hand, calling me wife tirelessly, and I kept responding to him over and over. Oliver's eyes went from joy to a hint of redness. In that teary moment, he kissed my lips passionately. From now on, you are mine. Mia, do you know how happy I am? I know. In those dark days, when there seemed to be no end, he always quietly watched over me, watched me cry, watched me laugh, watched me chase after another man. Now, it was my turn to love him properly. Late at night after taking a shower, I turned on my phone. There were dozens of missed calls, all from Ethan. The latest message had just come in. Mia, are you avoiding me? Tell me where you are right now. Rubbing my temples with a headache, I decided to tell him about the marriage. I heard footsteps behind me, and Oliver swept me up in his arms. I gasped, accidentally dropping my phone on the bed. He chuckled lightly, not paying it any mind. Wife, it's late. Time to sleep. The next moment, his lips came down on mine. Tonight, Oliver seemed particularly eager. The words I wanted to say got lost in that kiss. In the midst of our embrace, the sharp ringtone of my phone echoed throughout the bedroom. Oliver seemed unfazed, deepening the kiss. Feeling urgent, I wanted to answer the call, but Oliver held my chin firmly, forcing me to stay. Mia, focus, all right? Yet the ringing persisted, not stopping until answered. After a while, Oliver cursed under his breath. With a face full of dissatisfaction, he grabbed my phone from the foot of the bed. Seeing Ethan's name, Oliver's expression darkened. His tone was much colder now. It's for you. I glanced at Oliver and decided to answer the call. The voice on the other end sounded even more urgent than I had imagined. Mia, I know you're mad at me. Can you stop being mad, please? I haven't been able to reach you these past 2 days, and I'm really worried. Are you at home? Can I come see you now? I pursed my lips. No need. I'm not home right now. Ethan immediately responded. It's so late if you're not home. Where could you be? I'm with Oliver. The air suddenly grew quiet. Ethan's voice, filled with disbelief, came through the receiver. How could you? Before I could speak, I felt the surrounding air to chill several degrees. With a slight raise of his eyebrow, Oliver calmly said, Mia, you didn't tell him we're married, did you? Looking at Oliver's slightly disappointed eyes, my heart tightened. Subconsciously, I wanted to explain to him. No, I was just about to tell him. Unable to hear my response, Ethan kept calling my name on the phone. Oliver's eyes darkened, and without hesitation, he kissed my slightly parted lips. Mia, let me tell you, how should one deal with a rival in love? Originally very anxious, Ethan had imagined 10,000 reasons he couldn't accept. Why would Mia be with Oliver at this late hour? But when he heard my faint breathing on the other end of the line, Ethan felt like lightning struck him. They, in that moment, Ethan felt his world crumble. He had thought that as long as he turned back, Mia would always be there waiting for him. But now she was in the arms of another man. She no longer loved him. This realization made Ethan tremble all over, his blood freezing in place. The next moment, he heard Oliver's voice on the phone. "Remember, don't disturb our married life late at night. Ethan, don't you have a wife of your own?" With that, Oliver decisively hung up the phone. Meanwhile, Ethan was still in a state of shock. Mia and Oliver married. It couldn't be. This couldn't be real. Mia used to hate Oliver so much. She couldn't stand the sight of him. Why would she marry him now? The more Ethan thought about it, the more distressed and confused he became, eventually sweeping everything off the table in frustration. Inside the villa bedroom, after the commotion, Oliver held me in his arms without saying a word. Feeling a wave of anxiety, I propped myself up and looked at him. Oliver's eyes held emotions that I couldn't quite understand. Leaning in, I gently smoothed out the furrow in his brow. "Oliver, are you unhappy?" His gaze shifted slightly, his hand around my waist tightening. "Mia, do you still like Ethan? Do you?" At Oliver's words, my eyes suddenly welled up with tears. "No, I really don't like him anymore. I was just about to tell you that, but you interrupted. Oliver, you're the one in my heart now." Oliver looked at me. After a while, he finally smiled. "All right, I understand." The more he acted this way, the more flustered I felt. I would have preferred if Oliver scolded me or expressed his emotions to me. Unfortunately, he didn't. I moved closer and wrapped my arms around his neck. "Honey, do you trust me?" With gentle words, Oliver couldn't resist this kind of affection. He held me tenderly. "I trust you. Mia, I care about you too much. Selfishly, I've always wanted you to be mine alone." With tears in his eyes, he tenderly kissed my hand. I knew his fears, his vulnerabilities, all were laid bare before me. All I could do was make him feel secure. Our life after marriage with Oliver was even happier than I had imagined. He never interacted with the opposite sex inappropriately, always maintaining boundaries. Even with just a small word from me, he kept it in his heart. Friends would say having a husband like him was like finding a treasure, so much so that, as I watched Oliver busy in the kitchen wearing an apron, I suddenly felt a surreal sensation. Walking into the kitchen, I embraced Oliver from behind. He paused his vegetable cutting, then chuckled softly. "You seem to be clinging to me a lot these past few days." With a smile playing on his lips, he said, "That's a good thing." I tightened my grip on Oliver's waist, feeling a bit pained. "If this makes you happy, then I'll do more in the future." Oliver's back stiffened for a moment before he turned round. His eyes darkened slightly, his deep eyes gazing at me. "Really? Will you love me more and more?" At that moment, Oliver seemed like a cautious child, trying to please. I wrapped my arms around his neck, tiptoed, and planted a kiss on his forehead. "I will. Oliver, I will love you more and more." Oliver's eyes darkened slightly, and a gentle kiss followed. The room filled with warmth. On Friday night, Oliver had a social event. I had planned to go home, take a bath, watch some shows, and wait for Oliver to return. Unexpectedly, I received an invitation to a high school classmate reunion as I was leaving work. This gathering was organized by our high school class president. When I arrived at the restaurant, Ethan was standing at the door waiting for me. Seeing me approach, he looked pleased. I had no intention of acknowledging him and walked past him directly. Unexpectedly, Ethan eagerly grabbed my arm. "Mia, did you really marry Oliver? Tell me, this is fake, right? You used to hate Oliver the most in high school. How could you marry him?" Ethan's words felt like an interrogation, yet also like a monologue. A forced smile hung on his face, waiting for my response. I shook my hand free and took a step back. "Do you think I need to lie to you?" "Why?" "Because I love him." As I spoke, I saw Ethan's eyes well up with tears instantly. "It's impossible. You can't possibly love him. You clearly said that once we graduated from college, we would get married. Mia, look at me. The person you love is me, right? Ethan's eyes filled with fury as he gripped my shoulder tightly. I winced in pain, furrowing my brows, and only then did Ethan release me, as if waking from a dream. Ethan, who was the first to break our promise? Do I need to say more? Hasn't the fact that you were going to marry Lily ever happened? Or is it that you want both me and Lily? I tell you, you better give up on this idea. Seeing my firm tone, he hesitated. I glanced at him, lifted my foot, and continued walking forward, but Ethan's voice came from behind. Lily and I have broken up. I was confused before, which caused you pain. Mia, I regret it now. Can you divorce Oliver and get back together with me? I chuckled, not stopping my steps. On what grounds did Ethan think that as long as he turned around, I would always be waiting for him in the same place? All he's doing now is letting ridiculous possessiveness take over. When I loved him dearly, he took it for granted, so he could wholeheartedly love someone else. But when I turned around and married Oliver, Ethan couldn't handle it. He couldn't stand someone intruding on his territory, taking away his things. In Ethan's eyes, I was just a dispensable object. But Oliver is loving me with all his heart. He's a sensible person. He's fragile and sensitive. I will never hurt him again for Ethan. Now, the first time I saw Oliver was in my sophomore year of high school. After school, I helped a teacher grade papers. Coming out of the teaching building, the sunset was perfect. On the basketball court stood a boy covered in dirt. He looked as ragged as a stray dog, being scolded by his father. I paused my steps, though far away the middle-aged man's yelling was unbearable. The boy remained indifferent, not even lifting his eyelids. The next second, the middle-aged man's heavy slap landed on the boy's face. You brat! Just because your mom's not around doesn't mean you can do whatever you want. If you cause trouble at school again, I won't spare you. With those words, the middle-aged man quickly disappeared from my sight. The boy crouched down, curling up where he stood. I said nothing, quickly walking towards the school gate. With each step, it felt like something was calling me from behind. I tightly gripped the shoulder strap of my bag, but eventually stopped in my tracks. I walked up to the boy and handed him a clean handkerchief. You have blood on your lips? Are you okay? The Oliver at that time looked up at me for the first time. I paused for a moment. Those were very clean, clear eyes. He took the handkerchief and said thank you. Later, I found out that Oliver's mother passed away when he was very young. During his teenage years, he was particularly rebellious, even refusing anyone to enter his world. Despite this, every time Oliver was called by his parents, his father would still rush to the school in a hurry, bowing to the teacher in apology. Since then, I had an inescapable little tail behind me. Oliver would always silently follow me, walking me home. He would also stand up for me when I was bullied, even getting into fights for me. During that time, everyone in the school was spreading rumors that Oliver liked me. I finally couldn't take it anymore. One time, I stopped Oliver in the dead of night. What exactly do you want? Just say it. The Oliver back then chuckled, lightly, with a hint of bitterness in his smile. Mia, I've only ever wanted you, and you give that to me? That day, I harshly scolded Oliver, calling him a pervert. I cried, begging him to stop following me, to stop appearing in my world. I said, Oliver, you really disgust me. In that moment of eye contact, the light in Oliver's eyes dimmed little by little. After that, I started avoiding him, trying to create opportunities to be with Ethan as much as possible. But Oliver's presence was something even Ethan couldn't ignore. That's why he promised me that we would get married right after graduation. At that time, I looked at Oliver hiding in the shadows. Deliberately, loudly, I agreed to Ethan. And Oliver from then on never appeared in front of me again. Breaking away from the memories, I found myself standing at the door of the private room. As I pushed the door open, the scene inside was lively. Ethan and I entered one after the other, and everyone warmly greeted me. My former classmate, Hazel, pulled me over to sit down. Everyone was chatting noisily, mostly just polite small talk. Mia, you've really been too low-key these years. We never see you at our gatherings. Yeah, you should hang out with us more often. We're all old classmates. I chuckled lightly. Just busy with work. If it hadn't been for Hazel urging me all this time, I naturally wouldn't have come. I never liked these kinds of gatherings. Since Ethan entered the private room, he had been chatting with the class leader. His gaze occasionally fell on me, making me feel a bit uncomfortable. After sitting for about 10 minutes, I picked up my handbag and went to the restroom. While touching up my makeup, my phone rang with a message alert. Oliver, Mia, are you at a gathering near your company? I sent Oliver a puzzled little emoji. He quickly replied, I installed a GPS system on your phone. I smirked. This man really wants to control my every move. When I returned to the private room, they had started playing Truth or Dare. I sat next to Hazel, watching them have fun. Unexpectedly, the next moment, the mouth of a bottle on the table suddenly pointed at me. Someone in the crowd asked, Truth or Dare? I pursed my lips and chose Dare. A few enthusiastic classmates immediately got excited. Okay, you stand face to face with Ethan, put your hand around his neck, say some cheesy lines to him, and affectionately kiss his cheek. As soon as the words fell, a burst of cheering erupted. Everyone was eagerly watching me and Ethan, especially a few people who usually got along well with Ethan. The meaning in their eyes was even more obvious. I furrowed my brows and immediately refused. Let's change it. I really can't do this one. Ethan's smile instantly froze at the corner of his mouth. Even in a game, you resist me like this? I didn't say anything, and everyone started trying to persuade me all at once. No way, Mia. Can't you handle this kind of playfulness? Hey, didn't you used to be with Ethan before? Yeah, I remember you and Ethan had a good relationship back then. Did you guys break up? It's just a kiss on the cheek. There's no need to be such a killjoy, right? Among these mocking voices, some were from the girls in the class. Hazel was indignant on my behalf. Aren't you guys going a bit too far with these comments? What if Mia is married now? Isn't this kind of teasing ruining someone's family? One of the girls rolled her eyes and said, You said what if? But what if she's not married? Hazel was so angry her face turned red and her neck thickened. I comfortingly patted her hand, then looked at everyone and said, I am married. My husband is quite sensitive and he wouldn't be happy about this. As I spoke, all eyes in the private room were focused on me. Ethan's face turned red and then pale. Embarrassed, he stood up and suddenly pulled me up. Then he leaned in close to my ear and whispered, Mia, do you really want to embarrass me in front of all these people? I was stunned. Next, Ethan grabbed my hands and placed them around his neck. I struggled, but he held my hands even tighter. Just as I was getting angry and embarrassed, the door of the private room suddenly opened. Oliver stood at the doorway with a stern expression, staring directly at me and Ethan. Who are you? Someone in the crowd looked at Oliver with disapproval. The next moment, Oliver gave him a cold glance. That look was full of pressure. The previously lively private room instantly fell silent. Oliver walked over, pulled me into his arms, and caressed my slightly blushing wrist tenderly. Does it hurt? I shook my head and smiled at Oliver. He adjusted a few loose strands of hair on my forehead. I have a bit of a bad temper. My biggest flaw is being overprotective of my wife. Mia is now a married woman, so please be more mindful in social situations from now on. If any of you dare offend my wife again, I will make you regret it. Oliver spoke, but his gaze was fixed on Ethan. The eyes of the two men met in the air. Under Oliver's intense pressure, Ethan awkwardly looked away. With that, Oliver held my hand and left the private room directly. Sitting in the passenger seat, I nervously gripped the seatbelt. Although Oliver's face showed no expression, the car sped up quickly. I wanted to say something, but his dark expression made me retreat. Late at night, Oliver held me tightly in his arms. He tucked the blanket around me, making sure I wouldn't catch a cold. I sniffed, then said, Oliver, I want to talk to you about tonight. It's okay. Go to sleep. His words cut in softly. Oliver kissed my forehead, his voice steady. I wanted to say something else, but I could already hear his even breathing above me. Well, I'll talk about it tomorrow. I had a long dream where a man kept chasing me. When I woke up startled, I subconsciously reached out beside me. But the moment I touched the cold sheets, I jolted awake. Oliver wasn't there beside me. My heart skipped a beat. Slipping on my slippers, I hurriedly opened the bedroom door. I found Oliver sitting alone in the media room. It was dark inside. Even the movie playing was muted. I fumbled to turn on the light and saw a disheveled and pitiful Oliver. He was sitting obediently on the carpet. It seemed like he'd been in that position for a while. When he looked at me, his eyes were bloodshot. My heart clenched sharply, and I walked over quickly. "Can't sleep?" Oliver looked up at me, his voice slightly hoarse. "No." "Why didn't you turn the sound on?" "I didn't want to disturb you." I lowered my gaze and held Oliver's hand. Normally, his big hands were warm and dry, but tonight his hand was unusually cold. I tenderly took a blanket from the couch and covered him with it. "Next time you can't sleep, make sure to wake me up. Can I keep you company?" Oliver nodded obediently. "Yes, Mia, I'll do anything you say." He pulled me into his arms, but his shoulders were trembling ever so slightly. "Oliver, do you have something you want to say to me?" I leaned on his shoulder, patiently coaxing him. I've known for a long time that Oliver has serious paranoia. Once he brings someone into his territory, he won't easily let go. After a long while, Oliver's trembling voice sounded. "Mia, I'm sorry. Even though I know there's nothing between you and Ethan, I still can't control my restlessness. Even just seeing you both standing together, I find it unbearable. Before I had you, I used to think that as long as you were willing to be with me, I would do anything. But after you married me, I became greedy for your heart. I wanted your mind and body to belong to me completely. I know I'm being selfish, but I truly can't control my love for you. Every day, I want more than before. I want you to not speak to any man in this world. I'm really afraid that this obsessive love will scare you." As Oliver finished speaking, he choked up. His tears fell on my shoulder, paining my heart. Oliver had always been a sensitive guy. He lived in a dark world, afraid of losing me, afraid of scaring me. Even though he was so unhappy tonight, he didn't have the heart to blame me. This Oliver truly made my heart ache. I gently pulled away from his embrace and wiped his tears away. He looked at me cautiously, like a child who had done something wrong. "Mia, please don't leave me." In my memory, Oliver had never cried, even when his father slapped him. This man, however, was so fragile that he cried in front of me. I looked at him, and without hesitation, kissed his lips. Oliver hesitated for a moment, then opened his lips to deepen the kiss. After the kiss, I tidied up Oliver's messy hair. "Oliver, you can tell me anything, you know. Whatever it is, whether you're happy or sad, I hope you can share it with me. Since the day I came to you, I knew I was destined to be with you for the rest of my life. This kind of feeling I won't give to anyone else again. So you can ask me over and over again. I will patiently respond to you. I love you very much." As I finished speaking, Oliver's tears fell even more fiercely. He pulled me into his arms. "Mia, don't lie to me. If you lie to me, I will truly go crazy in the end." Who kissed whom first? It was already unclear. Oliver eagerly tore at my lips as if only by possessing me so intensely could he prove that I loved him. An hour later, Oliver carried me to the bathroom to bathe. I was already extremely tired, yet he enthusiastically kissed my lips. "Mia, do you love me?" At the same time, even though I was incredibly tired, I still managed to respond. "Oliver, I love you so much." Satisfied with the answer, Oliver held me and returned to the room. Contentedly, he continued to hug me and fell asleep. Time flew by, and before I knew it, Oliver and I had been married for almost half a year. Recently, I often felt nauseous. When our relatives were late to visit, Oliver took me for a checkup. When the results came back, a kind middle-aged female doctor sat in front of us. "Congratulations, you're pregnant." 4 weeks along, the baby was growing very healthily. Oliver and I exchanged a glance. I could see the deep joy in his eyes. Being a father for the first time, Oliver was meticulous. He patiently asked the doctor about the taboos for pregnant women. To better take care of me, Oliver hired a nanny. Most of the time, he worked from home. Even for my nutrition, Oliver took care of it personally. During the 2 months when my morning sickness was severe, Oliver grew thinner than me. If we must say, Oliver was almost a perfect husband. Seeing me struggle with the pregnancy, he hugged me tenderly. "Just this one. Let's not have any more in the future." I chuckled and patted his head. "Let's not have any more in the future." Honey, do you want a boy or a girl? At that moment, he gently embraced me. Either a boy or a girl is fine. As long as it's yours, I'll love it. I smiled and didn't reveal the truth. The last time we went to buy a baby cot, Oliver brought back a bunch of little girl dresses. I wanted to return them, but Oliver refused. We still don't know the baby's gender. What if they can't wear them later? It's okay, let's just keep them as a memento. A few months later, our child finally arrived. It was a girl. The moment she came out of the delivery room, Oliver's eyes welled up with tears. He kissed my sweaty forehead. Mia, you've worked hard. He said our daughter would definitely look more like me. Many years later, I leaned against Oliver's chest. Why did you like me in high school? Because you were beautiful. I chuckled and gently patted Oliver's shoulder. Be serious. Oliver kissed my forehead. When I was 8, my mom passed away. I lost my mind and died in a car accident after finding out about my dad's affair. At that time, I resented my dad, even felt that life was meaningless. I was a mess, getting into fights, not studying, until later you appeared in my life. And for the first time, I felt the urge to protect a girl. Everyone was afraid of me. But you chose to get close to me despite everything. Listening to Oliver reminisce about the past, I let out a soft sigh. If your mom knew that you're married now and have your own child, she would be very happy. Oliver looked up at the stars. Yes, she would be very happy. For a long time afterward, Oliver just held me quietly. After a while, he suddenly called out to me, Mia, thank you for choosing me back then. I shifted in his embrace, lifted my head, and looked at him. Oliver, I should be the one thanking you. Thank you for loving me all this time, from our unexpected encounter at the beginning to now, where everything has settled. Oliver confidently took every step towards me. This world is brilliant and grand. Oliver stood in the light, reaching out to me. With a smile, he said, Mia, welcome to my world.